Welcome to today's 5-minute Bible study in the book of James. Today we begin to look at James chapter 4. We're going to look at the first 3 verses of this chapter today. Now notice the chapter begins with a question. James asks, "What causes fights and quarrels among you?" Interesting question. He says, I know sometimes you fight, you quarrel amongst yourselves, and what causes this? What is the origin of this kind of fighting and this kind of quarreling? I think we can all agree, and James is assuming we'll agree, that this is not a good look for the Christian church. This is not a good expression of Christianity to be involved in fights and quarrels. So he says, when these things crop up, what is causing them? He goes on, "Do not they come from your desires that battle within you?" Now, he asked a second question, but this is sort of a rhetorical question. He assumes the answer is yes. Don't these fightings and quarrelings, don't they come from desires that are battling within you? So there's something about what we are desiring, what we are wanting, what we are craving for that is causing the fights and quarrels that James says should not be a part of the Christian life. So they're coming from these desires. Now, is he saying that it is wrong to have desires? It is wrong to want things? I don't think so. What he's saying is that when desires are improper, when we are desiring the wrong kinds of things, or when we are desiring things in a way that is not appropriate for us to have them, it is wrongful desires that cause our problems. I believe that's the understanding, and that comes clear in the next verse or so. James says, "You desire, and you do not have, so you kill. You covet, and you cannot get what you want, so you quarrel and you fight. But you do not have because you do not ask of God. And when you ask, you do not receive because you ask with wrong motives, that you may spend what you get on your pleasures." Now that last part is the key. You ask with wrong motives, and what you get, you want to use for your pleasure alone. In other words, it's not desire itself that is wrong. It's when desires become twisted and we begin to desire the wrong things, or we begin to desire to get things in a way that is inappropriate. So it's twisted desires, it's inappropriate desires, it's wrongful desires that cause the quarrels and fights among us. Now listen to me carefully. Desire is given to us by God. For instance, when we're hungry, we desire food. That's given to us by God to meet the needs, the nutritional needs of our body, to feed ourselves. When we're lonely, we desire companionship or friendship. Nothing wrong with that. God did not mean us to live on our own. He created us to live in community with one another. So the desire to have friends, the desire to have companions, that is good. You see, desire itself is good. The problem is that sin tends to twist our desires out of shape. So the appropriate desire for food is good, but if it becomes gluttony, it's a sin. The appropriate desire for friends is good, but if in our desire for friendship we seek to control and use and manipulate other people, that becomes bad. You see, it's desire twisted out of shape by sin, wrongful desires that lead us to quarreling and fighting. So I think what James is telling us is we need to have our desires sanctified so that they proceed as God intended them to proceed. That's why he says, ask God for what you need. Now he says, a lot of times you ask God and your prayers aren't answered because you're asking with wrong motives or wrongfully. So for instance, there's nothing wrong with my asking God to provide for the needs of my life. But it might be wrong, and probably is wrong, to ask God to make me a billionaire so I can just have more than I ever could possibly want. You see, there's nothing wrong with wanting the financial means to support yourself. But to want it all, to be covered by greed, is wrong. So we need to pray that God will sanctify our desires so that they flow in the appropriate channels. And then we need to pray in faith that God will give us what we need, that he will meet our appropriate rightful desires. And when we pray in faith, he will. So then the rightful desires of our life will be met by the gracious provision of God in response to our prayers, desires that are sanctified and flow in the appropriate channels. but we'll be cleansed of evil, improper desires, which leads to quarreling and fighting. So James would tell to us, or I believe he would say to us, ask God to provide what you need to meet the rightful desires of your heart, and ask him to cleanse you of wrongful desires that you may live a life of holiness before him. That's a good thing. That's a very good thing. You have a great day, and I hope you join us tomorrow as we continue our 5-minute Bible study in the book of James.